Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I can't sleep, so I'm doing videos. I'm wide awake, so I might as well do videos. I don't have anything else to do. And this is a true expression of myself, so fuck it, let's talk to my audience. I had, let me check my volume first. This is something I want to talk about. I was in bed, I got up, I ended up talking about the other thing first because that bugged the shit out of me. Study that wasn't a study. Bunch of people's opinion that couldn't conclude anything yet had a conclusion. But that was the other video. I want to talk about propaganda and the insidious nature of propaganda, and how in this odd, weird way, people who have been propagandized to are not necessarily mean or bad people, but they're hostile bystanders. They're in a particular process, flowing along in the stream, not necessarily realizing they're flowing along in a particular stream. They believe that they're thinking and functional and rational and everything else. And yet they're missing something in their analysis. And that fundamental flaw, the thing that they're missing in their analysis, allows them to kind of flow within that particular stream. Again, not necessarily realizing that they're within a particular stream, being hurled in a particular way. It's somewhat aggravating, and yet they're not necessarily mean or bad or evil or anything else. What is Superman if Superman was a Nazi? You ever think of that? If Superman was born in Germany, or Superman was caught by German parents and they raised him up to be a German, what is the ethical, noble Superman? What is the expression of that character, of that particular individual, of what it means to be Superman as a German and potentially as a Nazi? What about as a Russian? What about a normalist regime? Ultimately, Superman is just doing what Superman was born to do, in the sense of, I am fulfilling the values of my particular government, of my particular place. If that's Russia, it's Russia. If it's under Stalin, it's under Stalin. If it's under Hitler, it's under Hitler. But I'm going to be the best of whatever those particular things are, because for my value system, the value system being fully created based upon where he is, that's what I'm going to express, because that's what's right. He was born in the United States. And these traditional propagandized values of truth, justice, equality, etc., 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 became the thing. And that's the Superman that you have. What I'm getting at is, you could have people who are noble, who are nice, who are good, who try to be fair, who try to be ethical, and at the end of the day, what they're still functioning on is things that are imparted into them from the society itself that they've taken on uncritically. And they function on it as if that's the actual reality, excluding certain information that is crucial in understanding the world to which they find themselves. People have come across this phenomenon and say, woke. This isn't necessarily any kind of different space. It's just this, I think it's this, like, I think what they're describing is this wow effect. All at once. I think you have a bunch of people experiencing what they consider to be a wow effect, a widening, an expanding. This all at once expanding, and not just doing it from an individualistic standpoint, but doing it from several people at once. And they cling together to try to understand what's taking place, and the only way they can put it into words is awoke. This takes place from the standpoint when, you know, a large number of people doing this and coming to this conclusion all at once. And what they're seeing is a disparity between how they see the world versus how other people see the world. And they take that how they see the world is a wider point of view, in which case they consider themselves to be more awoke. Now understand, these points of view are relative. But I have to be honest, I think they're right. I think they are seeing something that other people aren't seeing. When I came home today, like I said, I'm staying with my mom for 3 months before my wife and I take off. And my mom and I are having a conversation. And she engages me on politics. And she brings up, I think one of us brings up Russia. First she mentions, she was like, yeah, I heard you use me in one of your videos. I said, yes, I did. Now, I need to make a note of that. I've never used my mom in a negative in my video. I never will. It's love her to death. Would never take place. You would never hear me say a bad word about her. But I may use her in a video because it's trying to give a conclusion, like a I'm trying to give an impression of something. This is what took place. This is an illustration of what I'm trying to explain in a linguistic way. It's never meant as a negative. It's only meant to be to explain. And I'm doing that again. But I'm making that very clear that it's not a negative. Because if she happens upon this video, I need her to understand that. Because we didn't necessarily finish my full thought. Because it was like, oh God, he's going into it again. I told you, the way I am on my videos is the way I'm in real life. And let me illustrate this. Because sometimes it's hard to get across in words and what you're trying to say. My wife and I are watching anime. My wife loves anime. And in this particular anime, this kid comes, I think it's Titan AE. I think it's Titan. Attack on Titan. Yeah, Attack on Titan. The kid comes home and he finds that his mom is a vampire. And not just a vampire. The mom has just killed the entire town. Literally eaten the entire town. And the kid, in a fit of anger, kills his mom. And I'm horrified by this. I'm like, oh my God, he just fucking killed his mom. What's wrong with him? And my wife is like, she just ate the entire town. What would you do? And I thought to myself, we would have to have a strong talk. We would have to have a strong talk. That shit cannot be permitted. You can't go out eating the town. I'm sorry. That's not permissible. It's not permissible. Yeah, she might have eaten the town, but she's my mom and I love her. I'm not killing my mom. I'm not doing shit but a strong talk. I'm trying to get across of, yes, nothing that I'm saying here is a negative. I use it purely as illustration. We get into a conversation today. And this conversation, I make the point to her, I say, yeah, I just did a video talking about the British government not being able to find anything pointing to Russia. That's how it started. That's perfectly true. They came out saying, it's Russia. Russia did it. Vladimir Putin signed off on it. He poisoned a spy in Britain. Rally your troops. We need to kick out delegates. Let's kick some ass. And the place that where the experts say, yeah, we can't, we don't know where the government gets that from. The government says there's other sources. The question to Theresa May, what's those other sources? How are you coming to this particular conclusion? Now, I make that point to her. And she says, well, what makes you think that he didn't do it? Or what makes you think he couldn't do it? Not necessarily that he didn't do it. What makes you think he couldn't do it? My point to her was, it's not that he couldn't do it. All of these governments could do it. Governments do very heinous things. All of the governments have the capacity to do these things. Putin is no different in this. So, is it possible he did it? Yes. Is it possible he didn't do it? Yes. Which is the important point. It is possible that he didn't do it. They jumped to a conclusion. Now, the reason she said this was to kind of push back on me saying, yeah, this is bogus. Now, her reasoning for pushing back on me from saying this comes a little bit later. Because she makes the point, you seem to give him a pass. And I've come across him early on, a long time ago. But you seem to give him a pass. He was a bad guy back then. I said, how do you know he was a bad guy? I said, first, I agree with you, he's a bad guy. But you understand that all of these people are bad guys. All of them. If you're coming to an analysis of politics, the thing that you must realize is none of these people are dandelions. All of them are bad actors. I'm sorry, it's cynical. It's the way you need to look at politics. There are things that these guys want to get accomplished, and they use the tools at their disposal to get those things accomplished. You are not going to always be aware of the things that they want to get accomplished. If that means killing a spy, that means killing a spy. In fact, that may be Russia, that may be Britain, that may be the CIA, that may be some alphabet suit in some other country. It does not necessarily have to be Russia. She is jumping the shark saying that it was Russia. That was my point. And that point is a flat fact true. It is unimpeachable. She says, well, yeah, but there were things back then where he's done that, you know, that leads me to believe that he's not a good guy. I said, I never said he was a good guy. That never factored into my analysis because it doesn't matter in my analysis. My entire point in this is there's no defense of Putin. It may seem that way, but there's no defense of Putin. My point in this is I don't want us being postured in a way that antagonizes somebody else. That's my point. You're mistaking me from taking a position of anti-war with a position of defending somebody else. Those positions are different. The reason she's taking this posture, and I asked, why do you believe he's a bad guy? Why? And she says, well, I've seen news reports. What news reports? News reports going back a long time ago. And those news reports say it's bad guy. American news reports. Yes, American news reports. One of the main news networks. Yes, one of the mainstream news networks. And I realized all at once, my mom doesn't mean bad. My mom is the nicest person you'd ever meet on this planet. Yes, she is. Sweet as apple pie. And she's coming to conclusions because she was propagandized to come to certain conclusions. Now, the propaganda is not so much that Putin is a bad guy. Putin may be a bad guy. He may be a horrible guy. I don't like autocrats. So it's not something I would particularly like. I know there's some people out there that feel they need to boost up Putin in order to, fight somebody else. I don't need to do that with anybody. He is what he is. I consider all of them bad actors. So when I look at the situation, I think he probably is a bad guy. But in this case, I also look at this and say, everybody else is also bad guys. These guys are all bad actors. These guys are all out there trying to get whatever they can get. That's the system to which we operate. All of these countries, to some degree, are operating within a capitalistic system. Even if in their country, they're running a socialist country, they're still functioning in a grand scheme of a capitalistic system, which means it's a dog-eat-dog system. All of them are playing the game to some degree. All of them. You can float into the perspectives of each of the countries to see what each of the countries want to acquire, what each of the countries want to do, what each of the countries are trying to accomplish. Sometimes those things are at odds with one another. Sometimes those things are not at odds with one another. But all of them are bad actors. There are no angels here, including your own faction. Meaning, when you're looking out at the world, the perspective that the media is giving you is the perspective of the United States. But it's the United States in this kind of cartoonish, two-dimensional way that if we're doing something for the right reasons. So if I would tell my mom, you understand that CIA was doing experiments on human beings in the United States. They had projects. You understand that they were talking about killing a bunch of Floridians to make it look like, give us pretext to go into Cuba. You understand that these guys come up with war plans in order to kill thousands or millions. That these were the same guys that were trying to get Martin Luther King to kill himself. I tried to get across to her that you understand that your government has done heinous and disgusting things just within the last few years. You understand that the guy who you voted for, who you cried, who got elected, was paying terrorists to undermine the Libyan government. And while undermining the Libyan government, comes out with Britain and France and say, we must now protect the Libyans that we have endangered by paying terrorists to undermine that state. And in order to protect those Libyans, we're going to do airstrikes. We're going to kill a bunch of Libyans to save a other bunch of Libyans. I tried to get across to her that, yes, Putin may be a bad guy, but you are ensconced in a country of a lot of also bad people. You're accustomed to these people because they wear suits. They walk around, but you also understand that Putin also wears a suit, and he's in his country, and he's walking around in the same way that the person, Theresa May, wears a suit, and she's walking around. All of these people are political actors in their own countries in the same way that you're political actors in your country. Paul Ryan is not a nice guy. Paul Ryan is a political actor in his country. There's some synonymous thing to Paul Ryan in some other country and the next and the next and the next. They're human beings. They're not caricatures. They're acting and behaving in ways based on their interests, just like we have certain interests in our country. Understanding politics is understanding that in the same way that that guy may be a bad actor, we're also bad actors. That is the one singular truth. They're all bad actors. The degree to which they're bad actors ranges, yes. But fundamentally, they're all bad actors. What Vladimir Putin would tell you, and I have a video of him, where he's making an argument of the problem with the relations between the United States and Russia is that the United States doesn't respect Russia as a power. It wants political influence in its own region, but it doesn't want to give Russia a power to which he sees himself influence in this region. So we have conflict. I tried to explain to my mom that, yes, he's a bad actor. But you also must understand that we're bad actors. But this didn't necessarily matter to her. The larger context of all of these people are bad actors, including us. That we have done horrible and terrible things. And the things that you're attributing to this guy, this one guy, Vladimir Putin, is also the things that needs to be attributed to us. Several-fold. I made the point to her that you understand that we helped Vladimir Putin get elected. And when I asked her, did she know why we helped Vladimir Putin get elected? is because when we helped Boris Yeltsin win office, us intervening into their politics helps Boris Yeltsin get in office, because we thought Boris Yeltsin was a clown. Buy him a beer, Boris, and that we can be able to take advantage of Russia. And we did. Millions of people lost their lives. Vladimir Putin was vice president of Boris Yeltsin. He exceeded Boris Yeltsin. They thought that Putin would be a guy that they can work with. They were wrong. He worked towards what he considered to be in the best interests of Russia and, yes, himself. But corrupt politicians are a dime a dozen. So am I going to be shocked by what Putin does in the Russia? No, there's a different level of politics. Am I going to be shocked that he's using autocratic powers to the degree that he can use autocratic powers? No! He's a politician. Neither am I shocked that the President of the United States also tries to get the most and maximize the powers that's within his office. All leaders do it. He is working within a different political space. If he was in the United States, he would be using the offices to the maximum degree that he can use the offices in the same way. These people are functioning in different political systems, but it's not like these people are fucking aliens. They're just human beings. They're working in their system. They're working within a system. My point to her, that I try to get across to her, is that breaking through the propaganda is understanding that all of these people are bad political actors. I am not defending one just because I say I don't necessarily want to have war. They're all bad political actors. That's called context. That gives you a wider scheme of things. When one person is condemning another person, you understand that they have no grounds to condemn them, seeing that they're doing the same thing. That is my point. That is my one consistent point that I try to make when I cover these stories. Context. That there is a wider context. When somebody is screaming moral outrage and they're condemning some other country, how are you condemning somebody else from this moral standpoint when you have no standing to condemn the other country, seeing as you are doing the same thing? Justice, if you're going to talk about justice, has to be blind. It cannot be selective. It can't be, I'm going to be angry at this guy because I don't particularly like this guy, but I'm giving this particular guy a pass. That's not justice, that's something else. My defense, or my defense of things, is not for Donald Trump. It's not for Vladimir Putin. It's not for any of those things. It's usually an anti-war stance that is shielding the argument, or going after the argument that they're using to come up with a pretext and a justification for doing something chaotic. That's my point. If there is a larger context to things, that larger context needs to be taken into account in any decision-making process. And oftentimes when people are having these arguments and trying to tar or feather or caricaturize or attack or trying to create something for people to attack, they're narrowing the focus down to a pigeonhole so they can get people into a very narrow, very specific point of view, completely absent the larger context. Love my mom to death. And I suspect that the same factors that act here is the same factors that act elsewhere. You're first introduced to a story. You take that story in your head as being true. Somebody else comes with you and says, wait a minute, that story is not quite accurate. Well, wait a minute, why is your story true and mine not? I learned the story. This person told me the story. This is the story that I understood it to be. And now the person is antagonistic of the news that you give them, even though that news is true. I had a friend of mine, sweet as can be. She was a military, she was a veteran. And she tells me, we get to talking about the Iraq war. And my feelings get engaged. And I am apoplectic at her point of view of this. Not just apoplectic, pissed off. Because my point to her was, they invaded that country on a lie. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And she says, yes, there were. I said, no, they were not. They weren't. There was no connection between 9/11 and Saddam Hussein. She says, that is not true. And I'm like, how on earth, so many years later, can you still believe this? How can you believe this? She did. She still believed it. She still believed it. People can be sweet as can be, but at the moment that they take a narrative to be true, they would defend that narrative. It doesn't matter what that narrative is. This thing in them is it's like, it is defective in me to have information that's wrong. Which means I must defend that bit of information that I have in me, even if that information is wrong. That is aggravating, but that seems to be this weird societal bias that we have towards needing to understand the world to which we live in, and not necessarily liking changing what we consider to be the world to which we live in. It's the property of being awake, I guess. And it's one of those things of how do you shake people awake in all sorts of facets. Whether it's they try to position you for certain things. Your country is not a dandelion. Your country is not the paragon of virtue. Your country is not the shining city on a hill. The world can be a different place. You can have healthcare. You can have education. You can have this thing of getting rid of poverty. Those things can be. And you still have to get over that hurdle of cognitive bias to some degree, or getting over the hurdle of what these people believe the world actually is, and breaking that idea of what these people believe the world actually is. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. It's weird, because there's sometimes my mom would say, yeah, it's a shame I did not know that these people were acting the way that they're acting. And if it wasn't for your show, I wouldn't have known. And I say, yes, that's growth. That's her recognizing that they're not telling her the truth. That she's gone 40, 50 years hearing from particular politicians, believing that the world to which she was accustomed to and that we're all accustomed to was the way that the world had to be. The people had to pay $50,000 in their, to get an education, not the temerity to get an education. They had to work 50 hours a week in jobs that they absolutely hated for low wages. They had to work all of these hours. All of this productivity increases were not necessarily getting a real increase on their wages. They had to go without education. They had to go without healthcare. They had to go without these things that other countries provide for their citizens. And when I say other countries, I mean us as a collective, making a determination that these are things that we want to provide our citizens because we care about the fact that you're born as an American, and we don't make sure that you can be the best goddamn American that you can be. It's breaking that reality that believes that those things are impossible. That's pie in the sky. That can't take place. Fact is, you can have whatever world you want, providing you're willing to deal with the consequences of that particular arrangement. And this is the arrangement to which we find ourselves. Are you happy with the consequences of that arrangement? Propaganda is a big fucking deal. And I don't necessarily know how you break that. I don't know how you break it. So, I see changes in the way she views the information. And I think for her, we're so accustomed to this paradigm of it's either this or it's either that. And I try to get across to her that no, neither is an option. Or both is an option. It's not one or the other. It is an important thing to realize that it's not one or the other. It can be both. And both is mind-changing. Both is mind-changing. Both get you out of the paradigm that this guy's good and this guy's bad. Because it means that this guy, both can be good, both can be bad. The situation can be more than just the binary choice. When I'm analyzing this person, I analyze this person knowing that the person who's saying certain things is just as bad, just as corrupt. I try to get that across. I find that to be important. And I understand at some point somebody said this guy's a Putin puppet, this guy's about all that other stuff. This guy's a Trump supporter, whatever. Say whatever they want. My point is always, I'm not defending Trump. I'm usually defending something else that's in front of the Trump, meaning the thing that they're putting out there is the thing that I'm attacking. The fact that I'm attacking that thing is not defense of Trump. It's like, even if you want to make the argument that Russia did not want Hillary Clinton to win the election, it does not mean that they wanted Trump. In the same way that I said, yes, Hillary Clinton lost, I was also, God damn it, Donald Trump won. Those things do not conflict with one another. They don't conflict. Oh, what is this? Balthazar, 228. Dude, you're too kind. America doesn't spread propaganda. I'm required to tell you this opinion was not coerced by the CIA after weeks of torture at the hand of John Bolton. Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Just hilarious. Jamal, you love Trump. Not so much. Not so much. Even if you don't give a fuck about anyone else, there is no denying a rising tide lifts all boats in the long run. These elites are delusional if they think they can manage the complexities. Here's the thing. I think, look, they're incentivized to believe that they can manage the complexities. Like, what I mean by that is, a lifespan is, what, 80, 90 years. You're just getting it while you're here. What do you care about what takes place in 20 years? You're getting it while you're here. These guys go with this idea of, we can maintain this for as long as we maintain this. Look at the stock market. They're not sane when they're going with the stock market. They're playing this kind of percentage incentives and everything else. And this stuff always balloons. If people were sane and rational when they were dealing with stuff like this, you wouldn't have all these balloons and busts and everything else. They try to get what they can. It's no reason to believe that how they would act in life will be some way different than how they act on the stock market. The stock market is just a microcosm of how they act in real life. The results should be and pan out to be the same. They do. They do. Trudy, only if the rising tide begins at the ocean floor. Oh, how deep, Rudy. Trudy, how deep. Paradoxically, he also venerates progressive voices as an elder brother. Oh, you're gonna have that kid looking me up. Nicholas Locke. Maybe everyone in Miami should move into a boat, rising tides and all. They may need it. They may need it. Fucking around with the way that things going in regards to the weather. They may need it. Yeah, I'm not gonna keep this one long. I just thought it was interesting. I was telling my girlfriend, and she was like, my wife, and she was like, yeah, man, when you tell me that you think that you have something interesting to say, don't tell me. So I was like, fuck it, I'll tell my audience. They'll think it's somewhat interesting. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. I just thought it was weird. It's like, the moment that she said that, I thought to myself, oh, here we are. This is how disinformation works. Or this is how bias works. It's not so much that everything the person's saying is wrong. It's not it. It's Fox News and MSNBC, but on an international level, if that makes sense. It's like we're freedom, justice, equality, etc., etc. Now, Russia comes out and says, we're socialist, we're a communistic country. And in being a communistic country, now mind, they never really hit communism, but in being a communistic country, they're saying we're a kinder, gentler country, even though we give up certain other things. So this is the dichotomy between these things. One is kinder, gentler. The people in those countries have more of the things they need. They're not necessarily poor, etc., etc. No, they don't necessarily have all the things that they need from an economic standpoint, but they have a different system. But this is supposed to be a system that helps meets people's needs and is kinder and gentler, with the system of essentially Stalin. A war of ideologies. But a lot of that warring ideologies was propaganda. It's propaganda on an international stage in the same way that Republicans are freedom-loving and everything else. Their freedom is only really for the top 1%. And the same way the Democrats, we love the poor. We love the poor. We love homeless. And we love these darkies. They love those people to vote for them, yes. But they don't necessarily put the policies that advantages those particular groups. It's what they say. It's not what they do. It's propaganda. If you were born in the 40s and 50s and 60s, the Democratic Party will look nothing like the party did in those era. And yet, the things that they're saying would be very similar. It's propaganda. It's what they say. It's not necessarily what they do. It's trying to get people to realize that what they say is not the reality of things. That is the thing that I try to do. That is the thing I try to pound in. When I talk to my mom, that is the thing that I try to do. But I realize that this is dealing with 40 years or so, 50 years, 30 years of a narrative about us, about who we are as a country, who we are as a nation, our national identity, what we believe in, the things that we do around the world, etc., etc., etc. It's trying to break through all of that and trying to get this point across that if what I'm telling you and this is true, it means your narratives of your beliefs in this is wrong. And I'm sorry your beliefs in this is wrong, but they are. We are not what you think we are. And it requires you to break that belief before we can actually become something different. So I'll leave it at that. I thought it was an interesting conversation with her. It was illuminating, I'll say it that way. So if she sees this, again, no harm is ever meant by this. I never said a bad word. I use it purely to illuminate because like I said, I work mostly from home. So these are the people who I interact with. And in interacting with them in this way, this is the stuff we talk about. They tend to be my boilerplate for stuff. So I'm going to end it here. I have a bit of work to do tonight, actually, software work. So I'm going to end this here, and I'm going to get some work done. thank you guys for tuning in. I know it's late night. Oh, Jesus Christ. It's like 12 o'clock. So I'm awake. Might as well be productive. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, everyone. Let me make sure I haven't missed anybody. Yeah, Balthazar. Thank you very much, dude. I appreciate it. All right, guys. Have a good one.